Hello, and welcome to the Midland County E-Yarn Club. Today we are going to go over how to read a color chart. So to begin with, whatever pattern you're working that has color work in it will tell you how many stitches to cast on and get your project set up before you actually move on to the actual color work portion of the pattern. This here is a color work pattern for a mitten. Now for reading the patterns, you'll want to start in the lower right hand corner. So always the first stitch indicated right there. Now we'll see that this whole row is a bunch of white blocks. Each one of those blocks represents an individual stitch. And we're going to work from right to left. And now we're going to look down here into the nice legend that they gave us. So we'll see that a white block means knit contrasting color. So that will be whatever color you have decided is going to be your contrasting color. Just because this is in white does not mean you have to use white yarn. In fact, for this pattern, while I did have the white blocks representing white yarn, the black blocks for me were representing blue yarn. And okay, so we knit the whole way across in white, and then once we're done with that, we're going to go right back up to the right hand side, and we have the knit main color represented by the black box. Now the reason why we are going from over here back over to here is because this pattern is for a mitten that is knit in the round. If you are not knitting in the round, you'd go from this block straight up and across that way. So if you're knitting something that is going to lay out flat, like a blanket, then you would not go from the very left hand stitch up to here. You would work back and forth like that for working in the flat. That's something that is very important to remember, because if you're working something in the flat and it's a pattern that's meant to be done in the round, you will have to adjust the pattern accordingly. Otherwise, you will not get the pattern that is actually shown in the layout. So I think for the most part it's fairly self-explanatory that, for instance, like in this row here where we have one white block then a black block, you'd be knitting the contrasting color and the main color, contrasting main, until you get to the very last stitch. So we are going to move on to actually this portion right here where they have added, and I'll zoom in a little bit so you can see, the MR and ML indicators in the boxes themselves. This is because we are adding stitches to make room for the thumb right here. So you want to watch whenever you're working a color work pattern for any specific indicators like that says, hey, you need to do an increase. And again, you'll see right here in the legend, it says make one right, make one left. So you want to watch for where they give you those indicators. And again, you're just going to be following the pattern right along. That way you know which color to do when. It's generally helpful if you have some way to, say, block out what's maybe above and beneath. That way you can focus just there on that row. That can be very helpful, and you will need to keep close watch on what row you're actually on. That way if you have to step away from it, you will be able to come back, know where you need to pick up at, and not be trying to look through the pattern and guesstimate what row you were working. Now another example of where they'll give you some extra indicators right in the color work pattern is these here. Got the little diagonal lines going up and in, and that indicates we are doing decreases, and we know that because we can see that right here in the legend. Now they're generally just going to give you something simple like this, like the SSK or slip, knit, or knit two together like that here. If you have a hard time remembering what these stand for, don't worry. The pattern will generally give you a detailed description of what those abbreviations mean. And if you happen to be not sure how to do those stitches, a quick Google search will generally get you to a nice tutorial video of exactly how to do those stitches. And here's actually another indicator that we have in this particular pattern, where once I get to that red block, I need to move those stitches onto a piece of strand of yarn or a holding needle, because they are going to be right there where I pick up and work the thumb. So you'll want to watch for that very closely. Now, you might be wondering, well, how do we get so many stitches here? Like, this doesn't seem to line up and go down. That is because in this particular part, we are started adding stitches. So that is why there is the gap there and there. And then because we're decreasing stitches, that is why there is the gray section there. But you will go, say, knit 3 in your contrasting color, knit 1 in your main color. So you basically just act like that white box is touching that black box. It's just whenever they printed it out, in order for it to be easier to read, they have just kept this line right along there. So I hope this has been helpful for you, and that this gives you the courage to try some color work and following a color work pattern like this yourself. And I hope you will join us next time on the Mifflin County eYarn Club.